don't wanna sleep in, cause I got something to prove. I gotta take what I hate and finally make a move. I think of you and all the shit you don't do. Well, I'ma make hella sure that I don't become you. I have no regrets, yeah, I'll tie up my chest. I'll never forget what it's like to be in debt. Been stabbed in the back bed, I'll show you what happens. Pass me the mic and I'll show you with action. I feel this pain, you already know. Turn that to gains, let my money show. I've got these things that I can't let go. Watch me turn this life into something that you could never own. I feel this pain, you already know. Turn that to gains, let my money show. I've got these things that I can't let go. Watch me turn this life into something that you could never own. So fight and die for the things you know you love. Do what you think is right and see life do what you want. So fight and die for the things you know you love. Do what you think is right and see life do what you want. So give me all the scars, I'm a human being. Cover them with tattoos so you can't see. Knew it from the start, you had problems with me and the things I could be, I just wish I had seen. I feel this pain, you already know. Turn that to gains, let my money show. I've got these things that I can't let go. Watch me turn this life into something that you can never own. I feel this pain, you already know. Turn that to gains, let my money show. I've got these things that I can't let go. Watch me turn this life into something that you can never own. So fight and die for the things you know you love. Do what you think is right and see life do what you want. So fight and die for the things you know you love. Do what you think is right and see life do what you want.
Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. I hope you guys are doing wonderful today on this Wednesday. You know, I want to thank you guys again for all the happy birthday wishes and texts and videos and everything you guys did to make me feel special yesterday. I appreciate it so much. You know, Nina, who's in the chat, she prepared a video for me that I watched today that was very awesomely made. So I thought I'd get on here today because I want to talk about some things. I listened to this video, but I also been listening to creators all day long because I do research. I work in the criminal justice system. I do all kinds of stuff, and so it's never too far from my brain. So I watched this video today on the family speaking, which is the Gonsalves family. And you know my take on that because I believe that a lot of individuals have some extreme opinions about the family. And that's their opinion to own, not mine to take on. You know what I'm saying? But I don't echo those opinions. I don't echo the negative opinions about anything in this case other than how people have came at me regarding the things that I want to present about this case. Just because I don't feel the same way as you does not mean that you're smarter because you've been following this case forever or whatever. Some people actually have jobs. Some people have obligations that can't, have them in front of this camera 24/7 or researching on a case that makes you seem a little obsessive to know more than the next person. That's That's just very my opinion right there, but whatever that's worth. I guess with my sunny disposition, I pissed off like 6 people last night in the live, so I lost 6 people. Well, I'm glad I lost them because obviously they showed, where A, their mentality is, or B, their incapability to look outside the box. Because I didn't say anything harsh yesterday about anything. I was merely speaking on my behalf. Well, let me say hello to some of the people that are in the chat. Let me kind of scroll up. It got kind of big really fast. Aquarius, Nina, Rondi, Jeff H. Wisdom Speaks. Welcome. I've never seen you in here, but welcome. Welcome to the chat. I have some thoughts already. Good to see you all. I'm in the truck driving, about to drive to band practice. What frustrates me is families are forgotten until someone wants to drag them through the mud. That's true, Nina. That's very true. And it's sad. It's sad, but I'm gonna educate some people in case they fail to truly understand some things. Maybe you've heard some things explained a different way, but I'm gonna explain them to you today so that you understand that if you hear them being explained a different way, the true meaning of something, okay? And some of this has to do with things that started very early. So this is the PCA, okay? The purpose of the probable cause affidavit is to document the reason for a warrantless arrest or search and seizure and to establish that there was sufficient evidence to do so. The document arrest reason. A probable cause affidavit is a sworn statement that details the reasons for arresting someone without a judge's permission. To establish probable cause, the judge reviewed the affidavit to determine if there was sufficient evidence to arrest the person. If the judge agreed that probable cause exists, they will sign and authorize a search warrant. So usually if the judge signs off on it, there's a search warrant that's coming not long after. Because you can't search somebody's property without a search warrant. Unless you see it right in front of you and it's a piece of evidence that you see with your own eyes. You still need probable cause to arrest somebody based on the violation of the law that you're trying to implement. Reduce need for the officer present. The affidavit can reduce the need for an officer to be present at the initial appearances in probable cause hearing. So if you got the probable cause, that means that the officer doesn't really have to be there because they wrote it. So it's their word. It's sworn. It's a sworn document. To reduce the need for the judge after hours. The affidavit can reduce the need for a judge to appear after hours for probable cause hearing. So that's pretty simple, right? But we've heard of PCA destructed in so many ways. It's been explained so many without the proper representation of what it really is. It's been explained that it's just a theory or just a fairy tale or just somebody's understanding of the crime or anything like this. It's none of that. It's none of that. I just read to you what it is. And if you want to go back and you want to read what it is again, you're more than welcome. Here's the next one. It says, no, a probable cause affidavit, or the PC affidavit, is a summary of evidence that is required to justify an arrest. It is not a theory, but rather a sworn statement by a law enforcement officer that details a reason for believing there is enough evidence to arrest someone. So it's not a theory. It's not, I theorize what happened, so therefore I'm going to write it down and just present it to a judge and say, well, this is what I thought happened. So you please sign it so we can get some search warrant, so we can get an arrest warrant and go about our business. No, that's not what happens. Here's some things to know about the PC affidavit. Who writes it? The arresting officer writes the PC. And some of the cases that we've been hearing about lately, especially the Idaho one, they didn't have anybody to arrest right away. So when the PC was written, the judge gave all the search warrant. They even probably wrote the arrest warrant when the person was of interest was found to be culpable for this evidence. Then they would be arrested. What it does, the PC affidavit summarizes the evidence and circumstances to an arrest. So it basically tells a story. It's not a theory. I walked in, I saw some blood on the couch. I saw a knife on the bed. I see some clothes ripped up on the side of the bed on the left side. It's crumpled up. And what they usually probably get this from is the pictures or the photos or even the sketches that happened during an investigation. People have the misconception that whenever they're writing this PCA or they're getting the notes for this PCA, that it's just on memory, that people are just doing what they want to and documenting what they want to. No, that's not how it happens. And I know it won't be too popular. I'll get questions in the comments, or I'll get remarks about other people's statements about me being wrong and they being right. Well, obviously in this community, people choose sides and they try to make up their own mind based on who they like as a presenter, not what's being presented. So if they like you, if they like your approach, they're going to believe everything that comes out of your mouth, even if it's a lie. They don't cross-reference you. They don't fact-check you. They just believe everything you say. So if you're on multiple panels, then you're more believable than somebody who's never been on a panel. But if you go up on a panel and you say this stuff, they're not going to believe you because you're actually being factual. You're not being entertaining enough. You're not presenting a why this shouldn't be done type scenario, So we came to that. The arresting officer writes the PC. What does the PC affidavit? It summarizes the evidence and circumstances of an arrest. So we arrested this guy because this is what we found at the crime scene. And we took you through the crime scene step by step, understanding it a certain way as it was presented by the people that were there. And another thing that I heard today that was very interesting to me was about contaminating the evidence. It's people's belief system that the evidence was contaminated because of so many people that were in the house. Well, let me break it to you, folks. The evidence may have been contaminated in the living room. It may have been contaminated in the kitchen area. It may have been even contaminated if there was any evidence in Dylan's room or Bethany's room. But where most of the evidence were in the bedrooms. So if all them kids went into their bedroom, then they did contaminate the crime scene. But if they didn't go in that bedroom, if they didn't go upstairs, that evidence wasn't contaminated. And not everything in that house was evidence. There was only 113 pieces. So not everything is evidence. But people want you to believe that everything in that house was contaminated. Well, there was a party the night before. There was all these people. You don't think the police are smart enough to discern whether this DNA or this handprint or this palm print was made by somebody that wasn't there on the night of the crime? You don't think they're smart enough to discern that? Or you think they're stupid enough they're going to dust the whole house and then methodically eliminate all these handprints, all these fingerprints? Well, they might have. Maybe that's why it's taken so long. But they know their own people's fingerprint. They know the fingerprints of the victims. Hell, they probably got down to the fingerprint of the perp. by process of elimination. Who reviews this PC? A judge reviews it. And they determine if there's enough evidence to arrest the person. So obviously there was enough evidence in the IDAHO4, the Delphi, the Gilgo Beach, all those, the Stephen Stearns, all those cases, there was enough to arrest them on the affidavit. When it requires a PC affidavit, is required for warrantless arrest, where the officer arrests someone without a judge's permission. That means that you stumbled upon the evidence based on pulling the car over and there's weed in the trunk. There's weed where you can see it. There's guns, there's cash, there's all this stuff that would define that this person is breaking the law. So there you arrest the person and then you write the affidavit. What it is not, the PC affidavit is not evidence itself, but rather a summary of what the officer claimed the evidence is. Did you hear that? It is not evidence itself, but rather a summary of what the officer claimed the evidence is. That is still not a theory. A theory is you base a hypothesis and then you state a theory based on that hypothesis. And then you do scientific testing to see if your theory matches up to the hypothesis that you presented. How it is used. The PC affidavit is submitted to a judge, which we said, who may sign and authorize a search warrant, and they agree if there's a search, a probable cause. And I am going to get to the video. I'm not lying to you. It was not clickbait. It's after all this stuff. I want to go over all this stuff. That way people are very understanding of what I'm talking about or what the court case is about to talk about here in the near future. Some people were talking about the grand jury, and they should have never indicted the individual in the IDAHO4 based on, not having enough information, or, the grand jury wanted more information, all this stuff. Well, let me tell you what a grand jury is. When it comes to an indictment, the grand jury determines if there's enough evidence to bring charges by using the standard of probable cause. So where did they get the probable cause? Ding, ding, ding. The probable cause affidavit. This means that there are reasonable grounds to believe a crime has been committed. The defense is not there at the grand jury. It's just the prosecution and the grand jury jurors that are doing an investigation to make sure that the evidence and the probable cause matches enough to indict this individual for the crime. What happened without the indictment? Or what happens after the indictment? After the indictment, the accused will go to a trial. That's what we're seeing in a lot of these cases. What happens without an indictment? The prosecutors can't bring charges against an individual without an indictment. So you know what happens? The individual gets to go home. So all these people that say, innocent till proven guilty, it's innocent. Hey, buddy, let me tell you something. If he's truly innocent, they would have never indicted him. He would have never been indicted. I'm not saying he's guilty of the crime, but he's guilty enough to indict him. But then you must pick away at the way people did their job, the evidence that you assume that they have. Everybody has a theory, right? But one day you're gonna see whether your theory was right or whether it was wrong. And that's going to be an awesome day indeed. So without an indictment, you can't bring charges against this person. He would have walked on any of the cases that I just talked about. Any of them. And I'm going to do a case on Alex Murdaugh on Saturday, I think, that I'm going to revisit that crime because they're trying to bring him back to court to possibly let him go. I don't know if y'all followed that case, but how grand juries work. Grand juries are made up of lay people who act in secret and are free from technical rules. They're summoned in the same way as trial jury. They serve for a few months at a time. And guess where that grand jury was probably where those people were plucked from. You know it, Latah County, where they were so prejudicial that, you know, there couldn't be a fair trial. Well, since we're talking about fair trials, I'm going to bust out the amendments for you. There's the Fourth Amendment, the Eighth Amendment, and the 14th. The Fourth Amendment protects people from unreasonable searches and seizures by police or other officials without a warrant. This includes searches of the person's person, home, and items within their home. So, you get the PCA, you get the search warrants. Any of that evidence that they searched and seized had to be in a search warrant. If for some reason in any of these cases they got evidence without the search warrant, that evidence is inadmissible in the court of law. They can't use it in the trial. Even if it's the weapon, even if it's a video that shows the person walking in and walking out, if you didn't get that video with a search warrant, they can't use it. The Eighth Amendment. This protects people convicted of a crime from cruel and unusual punishment. It also states the excessive bail and fine should not be imposed. This was the amendment that was imposed when they actually arrested him. And, you know, in more cases than not, bail is presented to a person. But in a death penalty case, a lot of times it's not, because you're going to let somebody who's been indicted of a murder case, you're going to let them go and flee, possibly. Most people are going to run. They're not going to stay around for the trial. So there's individuals that are saying, well, how come this guy has been in jail in one case for all this time? Well, I'm sure they found that there was not a reason to grant bail because of the way the law works. No other reason. No other reason. In a Delphi case, look at Richard Allen, man. He's been in a prison awaiting trial. They didn't even house him in the county. They had him in a prison awaiting his trial. You know, that I've never heard of that in my life, but you know what? That is terrible. That is a violation, I would believe, a cruel and unusual punishment. If he gets convicted, I believe that his Eighth Amendment right has been violated due to that, even though they said, based on his health issues, they could not accommodate him in the county. So that's why they sent him to a prison. But still, do you see how he looks? You see all the weight he lost? You see how dilapidated he looks? I mean, it just, this one is a very sticky amendment right here, because it can get a lot of people off on an appeal. Now let's go to the 14th Amendment. This applies the restrictions of the 8th Amendment to the states. It also contains the right to due process of law and equal protection under the law. So that's basically saying that we are going to treat you fair and give you the same ability to present evidence, to gather evidence, to search for evidence, not to treat you any different than anybody else as a U.S. citizen. So if any of these things were violated, then it could be grounds for appeal. And you know, if you believe that person in any of these cases has any kind of appeal, then they could be jumping on any of these amendments to possibly get an appeal. And here's the one that in the IDAHO4 case, Mr. Koberger has been able to address these by the Fifth Amendment, meaning that he has the right to remain silent. You know, he doesn't have to talk. He doesn't have to do anything as a defendant. And that's everybody's right as a defendant. You know, you have the right to remain silent, because anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. Basically, it says no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on the presentment of an indictment of a grand jury, except in the case arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger. nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy, meaning that you can't have a double jeopardy against you. That's the other part of this amendment. And nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor to be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. So there's amendments written for our rights. And people scream, well, we don't have rights. We don't have rights. They violated this right. They violated that right. Well, there's a time and a place for when these rights are going to be looked into. And that's the appeals process. That's not the trial. If they somehow feel that these rights were violated, which at this point they're not because he's remaining silent and he's gone on his Sixth Amendment right, meaning that all criminal prosecution, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial. He's going to have a public trial, but not a speedy one because he chose not to go that direction. By an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by the law and will be informed in the nature of the cause of the accusation to be confronted with the witnesses against them, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. Basically, this is the law that, or the amendment that everybody has. We have these amendments as citizens of the U.S. So we have the ability to have a trial based on our peers, a public trial. So anytime that they want to say, well, no cameras in the courtroom, nobody can know what's going on, nobody can see what's going on, well, they're violating this individual's rights. In any of the trials that I've talked about, you have the right, to confront your accusers. You have the right to cross-examine. So at any time, any of these cases that I'm talking about, any of that happens, you have the right to ask, hey, how did this happen? How did you get that? How did you get this? So I wanted to kind of educate you guys on that before I played this video. I hope that it kind of cleared up some things because I hear every day misinterpretations of what these things mean. And I'm not trying to call anybody out because you know what? People have their interpretations of what they believe, but it doesn't always make it the right definition, if that makes sense. Let me see if I can find what I was looking for here. See, I watch so much stuff, I have to go back and see if I can find the one that I'm looking for. Once again, I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are having a great day, that you're full of hope and understand that the week is half over. And it's not always as bad as we sometimes make it. It's interesting to me, though, that anytime someone is positive, there's always somebody that wants to step on their positivity. They want to talk crap about you behind the scenes. They want to act like they're your friend, but then they run off and tell other people what you're doing or what you're planning or what you've said. One thing about me that I hope that everybody understands is I'll never run from controversy. Actually, I welcome it most of the time because, sometimes you have to show people that they're not as smart as they think they are. And you're not as dumb as you look. Which, sometimes that is a hard lesson for people to learn. Let me get this from the StreamYard because I can't find it in the history. Y'all hold on a second. Because for some reason, people think I'm an idiot. And I'm like, okay, it's cool to think that. But you're going to go hardcore? I'm going to go hardcore. You don't control me and I don't control you, but you come at me, I'm going to go at you. That's just how it goes. I'm not a female. I'm not somebody that's weak. I found it. And I'm not trying to get all up here and talk all big bad and everything else. I'm just saying. There's sometimes where people mistake kindness for weakness, you know? You can't mistake kindness for weakness. You can't. And it's cool. It's cool that, you know, I didn't get on this to make a million friends. I got into this to do exactly what I'm doing, and I'm happy that I'm doing it the way that I feel that it needs to be done. Let's go ahead and watch this video. This is the one about the family reacting. And toward the end, I want you to really listen to what Steve says, because he gives you a boom in this video. A boom that I had to listen to 3 times. 3 times. And I was like, did he really say what I thought he said? Did he say, did you hear that noise? No, I'm just being silly right now. But I had to listen to it 3 times to see if he really said what I thought he said. So I'm going to play it for you guys, and then I'm going to rewind it and play it again and play it again and see if we actually hear what I think I heard, because he gives follow-up. So it's not like he just says it and then runs away from it. Here we go.
Judgment of guilt.
It's time to put your foot down and say, okay, the way you've been doing it isn't working. I'm not going to risk my daughter's life over, you guys playing little games of not cross-examining and not doing the extra mile.
A bombshell ruling in the Bryan Kohberger case. The judge not only deciding the case will be moved out of Moscow, Idaho, but also the judge indicating he wants off the case altogether. I'll break it down and get reaction from one of the victims' families in this special News Nation and long crime collaboration of Enton Across America. Hey everybody, this is Brian. I'm actually doing this podcast from the airport. Sorry if it's a little noisy. There's some background music playing, but I wanted to get this on with the developments with Idaho. I was actually in Idaho recently. Now I'm flying out. I'm going to Pennsylvania. I've been working on an Ellen Greenberg story. If you don't know that one, you can go back and see I did a podcast on that. I'll have developments on that case soon. But I wanted to go over the latest developments with Idaho because there's a significant development when it comes to the change of venue. The judge in Idaho, in Moscow, Idaho, Judge is his name, has granted the change of venue. So the Bryan Kohberger trial will be leaving Moscow, Idaho. We'll be going somewhere else in the state. Where?
I believe he meant, while she was alive, the memory of her life. He didn't really articulate it right, but, I think that's what he meant. I'm not certain. But I do want to ask you guys a question. What's your thoughts on the change of venue? Do you think that it was a good idea? Do you think that they're actually going to have the ability to have a fair trial now? Or do you think that it was a bad move? And if so, give your thoughts, because that's what this chat is, a safe place. Nobody can attack you because they will either be timed out or they'll be blocked. That's not how we roll in here. So give me your opinion on that.
Exactly, we don't know. I want to read part of Judge's ruling. It says, considering the undisputed evidence presented by the defense, the extreme nature of the news coverage in this case, and the smaller population in Latah County, the defense has met the rather low standard of demonstrating a reasonable likelihood that prejudicial news coverage will compromise a fair trial in Latah County. Thus, the court will grant Kohberger's motion to change venue for presumed prejudice. And in the judge's order, he goes over the reasons for his decision. He talks about the defense witnesses. You remember they had this big hearing where the defense argued for a change of venue. He talks about the witnesses who testified that media coverage was spread out across Latah County, that many of the potential jurors that were surveyed.
So now that you have an understanding of the amendment right that I went over, you're going to understand that a lot of those have ties into everything that's being fought for or against right now, because that's the right that's being either his freedom is being going to be taken away or his rights to be free are going to be given to him. And you want to make sure that you get it right. You want to make sure that you're not violating his rights in any way whatsoever. And if there's no evidence, you can't say, well, his rights were violated by this. Well, unless you know that because you got unwarranted information from the gag order, nobody, I believe, really knows that unless the families know it and their investigators know it or their lawyers know it.
Via telephone, knew about the case. He also talks about just how small the jury pool is in Moscow, Idaho. It's a small college town. And what was interesting is much of his decision based on his filing was because of how small the police departments and law enforcement agencies and court personnel agencies are in Moscow, Idaho. He talked a lot about how the sheriff's department is a small department, which I've seen. I mean, every time you go to the hearings in Moscow, Idaho, and I've been to most of them, it's the same sheriff's deputies. There's just a handful of them that control the courtroom. It's a small courtroom. It's a very, very small courthouse.
One thing that I don't understand in the motion example that the judge gave is, he's known that for all these years, pretty much since he took over the case. He's known that the courthouse was small. He's known that they have limited law enforcement. He's known all these things. What made him continue on with this road that we've been on for all this time and not basically say, hey, I have some concerns. If you're really in tune with wanting to get this right and wanting to make sure his rights aren't infringed or to have a fair trial, you would have put all that out there. You would have said, hey, our courthouse is too small. We don't have the rooms to do what we need to do. We don't have the cops to quarantine people off. We don't have this, that. What if something else breaks out during the trial? I mean, we don't have all that capacity. He's basically wasted our time. And you might not believe that, but I believe that he's wasted taxpayers' time because taxpayers are paying for this. And if I was a taxpayer in Latah County, I'd be pissed off because, hey, we're supposed to be almost a trial by now. Do y'all agree or disagree?
Again, it's a small sheriff's department. It's a small police department, Moscow Police Department. And the court clerk's office is very, very small. So he said that they just wouldn't be able to handle it in a small county like Latah County. He made reference that, if there was another big law enforcement event, God forbid, a mass shooting or a major car wreck or something like that, that they would be spread just too thin with a trial of this magnitude also happening in Moscow. So that seemed to really play into his reasoning, and now the trial will be moved. What's interesting, and I want to read you the last part of his ruling, he said, Koberger's motion to change venue is granted pursuant to Idaho Criminal Rule 21A and 21B, consistent with the language of Idaho Criminal Rule 21C 2B. This court orders a transfer of venue without specifying the new place of venue and refers the case to the administrative director of the courts for assignment by the Supreme Court to a court of proper venue in another judicial district and assignment of a specific judge to preside in the criminal proceeding. Now, that part, I know it sounds kind of wordy, but I'll explain it to you. That part really surprised me. I mean, I was sort of expecting that there would be a change of venue. But what he's saying there is that he also is getting off of the case. So Judge will no longer be presiding over the Brian Koberger case, and it will now be up to the Supreme Court to decide not only where the case moves, but also who the judge.
I believe when they set up, I'm answering this question right here. I believe, and don't quote me on this because I could be wrong, but I believe when they moved to start having the motion hearings, I believe at that time he could have said, "Hey, we have a problem. We have a problem. That we're going to need to find a different place to go because, and he could have got with both the prosecution and the defense and said, hey, we need to work on a change of venue because this place is too small for the atmosphere that it's gaining as far as the publicity. We're right across from a school, all those things you've heard all these years, and they were legit. I just wish they would have done it sooner, but that's just me. I'm nobody,
Judges. So we're going to see a whole new judge, and we're going to see a whole new location. Where that is, we don't know. Could it be one of the counties near Moscow, Idaho, one of the surrounding counties around Latah County? That's possible. Could also be Ada County, which is about 5 hours or so from Moscow. That's Boise, Idaho, which would in some ways make sense and solve some of the problems that the judge talked about in his motion. It's a big county. It's a big courthouse. It's where Lori Vallow's trial was, you might remember, a big judicial complex. They've got big courtrooms. They've got plenty of courtroom personnel. They've got a secret underground entrance for jurors and for defendants. So that could be a possibility that the case does end up getting moved to Boise. We're just going to have to wait and see on the timeline. But the Supreme Court hopefully will make a decision soon because there's all sorts of deadlines coming up that Judge had set. Whether those deadlines will stick, we don't know, because now there's going to be a new judge and a new venue. I spoke to Kaylee Gonzalez. She's, of course, one of the victims. I spoke to her family about this decision. I was in the studio last night.
Possibly this judge may have thought that, when these 14 motions to remove the death penalty and all that, maybe he got to thinking, hey, I don't want to be the one that ruled on this because I got to live here in Latah County. One way or the other, if I rule the wrong way, that could define a lot of things in my life, my family's life, these people's opinion of who I am and, reputation and, small communities are tied together. So, it's probably a wise move for him. If the Supreme Court's going to allow him to step down, it's probably a good thing for him to let somebody else, go with those motions.
And spoke to them. Take a look.
Let me start with you, Steve and Christy. What was your reaction to this ruling from the judge that there will be a change of venue, and then also that he is no longer going to be on the case?
So I actually heard those separately. They didn't come together for me. Somehow I got that the venue was going to be changed, but no location had been decided, or that the Supreme Court would be deciding that. So that was a little like, okay, disappointed. And then shortly after I heard about the judge. So I was on the phone with Steve saying, have you talked to Shannon? And he's like, I just got off the phone with Shannon now, so I'll call you back. So, they kind of had a discussion with Olivia and Steve and Shannon. And then he kind of called me back, and I was kind of losing my mind a bit, like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is the end. We're losing control. But he kind of, after he got me in on their discussion, I think that it's all for the best and there's a silver lining. I think, getting rid of, we still don't know what county, so that still could be Nez Perce, could possibly be Kootenai County. And I think that, I think the judge was in over his head, and I think getting a judge in that's way more decisive with a heavier hand and ready to hit the ground running might be exactly what we need. Hopefully it doesn't delay things and we could just go.
Steve, were you, I was reading through your statement. I mean, have you been frustrated with the prosecution? Because I was at the last hearing when they had the change of venue hearing, and, it does seem like the prosecution doesn't always push back a lot on some of these, you know, defense witnesses and defense arguments?
Yeah, we are a family of action. We are getter dones, you know, put the foot down to the metal and go. We went and hired Shannon. Thank God we have legal counsel, because if there's ever been a case where you need somebody that you trust, somebody you can work with, it's been him. Any family that goes through some tragedy like this, I highly recommend you find somebody that you trust, that really knows the ins and outs of that courtroom. So we hit the ground first and we said, you know, you got to be more aggressive. You guys have to be more aggressive. And they pushed back at us. And here we are, two months away from 2 years, and they're resetting. So we were right. We told them they needed to be a little more aggressive, maybe a lot more aggressive, somewhere in the middle. And you know, here we are today, and we were right. But we can course correct. We can get this fixed. We can get the right guy in the right chair, and we can go from there. And I totally have belief in the Idaho Supreme Court. I know that they're going to pick somebody that they trust, somebody that they're already going to be well known about his cases and his work history. So everything that he puts down, it's not going to be questioned, because they're not going to pick somebody with a questionable past. So that'll be the best.
Do you know, Shannon, like I was looking over some of
You know, that'll be something fresh. That might be a good thing, that you have a judge who's going to be able to look at this objectively, because it seems like Judge was invested in the beginning, but it seems like the defense and the prosecution were throwing so much at each other that it's almost like he got tired of watching two kids fight. You know what I mean? It sometimes felt like that. And it's not necessarily going to be a hanging judge. You know what I mean? Like, it's people, they tend to be scared of the unknown, or they're fearful of the unknown. You have to let the process work itself out. You know, it could go in any favor. You know, you don't necessarily start dogging the judge right off the bat. It's almost like watching football, you know, and I talk about football a lot because it's kind of like this, you know, there's an offense and there's a defense. You know, you draft a new quarterback and he comes out and he struggles automatically. Everybody wants to throw the team away. They want a new coach. They want a new quarterback. They want new this, new that. You got to trust the process, because eventually this is going to happen. With or without all the evidence, I just hope the rights haven't been violated in any way whatsoever, because you don't want this to be an innocence based on a technicality, because then you're always going to be wondering, is he really innocent, or did they let the wrong guy go? You know, that's what I'm saying. It's like, I'm not saying guilty or innocent. I'm just saying that, you know what, if you trust in the process, you want it to go the way it's meant to go. And whether you believe that's been going the way it's meant to be up to this point, that's your opinion. I believe that it's been too stalled of a process, and they should have been gone on down the road. There should never have been 17 motions to get the discovery. There should have been no more than 3 or 4.
some of the deadlines in the case. Like I think there's a November 7th deadline, a hearing for the death penalty issue that came, you know, the defense fighting the death penalty. Like, so will it be a whole new judge now in a whole new courtroom for everything moving forward?
Well, I mean, as soon as they change the venue, like they pick the select and they tell us what county it's going to be in, I'm assuming that assignment will include a judge who will be presiding over the case. Obviously, all of the current decisions that have been made on the case, he can either stick with or go back. Normally, they stick with the decisions that have been made, and then anything moving forward. So all of these motions that have been filed regarding the death penalty and some of the other aggravating factors, those will be decisions that this judge makes on the case. And so, you know, we're hopeful that will be either in Kootenai County or Nez Perce, because they're closer locations, and there's competent judges that can handle these types of cases and just get this thing going. So,
and I know how hard it is, Christy and Steve, when you guys have to go to the hearings and kind of get like the lay of the land there and get to know the people. And I'm just thinking, like, you will have to, I guess, sort of reacclimate to a whole new process
Mhm.
in terms of, the way you see Coburger and where you sit. I mean, you've kind of gotten a little bit used to where you're at, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're prepared for that. We were just talking about that earlier. We'll have to kind of retouch with this community, whatever community it is, and get to know this community as well. And hopefully we have the support and the love that we do from Lathrop County, which I don't see why we wouldn't. And just depend on that community to support us. And like you said, learn the lay of the land and the courtroom. And, that will take a bit. But hopefully he'll be in orange next time we see him. And he won't be in his fancy suit anymore.
And that's been a big deal for a lot of creators. They've been talking about this. And I don't know why it matters so much to anybody, but I could see how it mattered to the family, because they don't view him as a normal, everyday person. Supposedly, he killed two of their daughters. You know what I mean? Because they were just, Maddie was like a daughter to them. So he's a killer in their eyes. They don't want a killer to be dressed just like they would be dressed going to church. And I can understand that from a grieving parent standpoint, a therapeutic standpoint. I could understand that. But he also has that right as a citizen to dress accordingly. I mean, I could see where her opinion is what it is, but as a citizen of the United States of America, he does have that right to be in a suit, It's tough to watch, but, it is what it is.
Well, they made such a big deal, Steve, of having him in the suit. I think the assumption was because it was going to be in that community.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was a strategy that we were somewhat made aware of, no promises or anything along those lines, but there was a strategy. We didn't necessarily agree with it, but you trust, you put your trust in the people that have been in that room. And then when it just backfires, it's time to put your foot down and say, okay, the way you've been doing it isn't working. I'm not going to risk my daughter's life over, you guys playing little games of not cross-examining and not doing the extra mile. If the other side's going to be working till the very end, till an hour left of the courtroom, then you know what? You talk until the end and then we do it again. We don't give up. We don't quit. We don't take the easy way road out. And I kind of felt like we were being out hustled sometimes. And, that needs to end, especially once we get to trial time.
Were you surprised, Shannon, that the judge wants off the case? I guess, I don't know. I felt like he was kind of invested, when I went to the hearings. Maybe I had the wrong, perception.
I think I was more surprised by the things that were mentioned in the order, how, deficient Latah County was in handling this type of case. And, a list of all of the things, the court clerks, the staff, the security, all the expenses, the privacy, the rooms that could be provided for the defense and the prosecution. And I was more surprised at that and how strong of a basis he used that in his order to grant the motion to change venue. And, these aren't issues that just happened yesterday. They've existed since the beginning of this case. And so I was surprised that was really a strong basis for the change of venue, was the deficiencies in Latah County, that he thought that it could not handle a case of this size and this type of publicity. And I think the family feels like if that was his belief from the beginning, well, we should have jumped off the horse a lot earlier and got this going in a direction that's not as delay oriented. So
there are also those issues that you talk about, that he talked so much about in the ruling, are not really issues that came up much at the hearing.
Nope.
That wasn't a big part of the argument, but then it was a big part of his ruling.
Well, and the other thing, Steve and Christy and I have talked about it, is the missed opportunities for the cross-examine of the witnesses. A judge has to base his decisions on what's presented in front of him. And if you only present one side, that's what he has to believe. If I say that, that over there is a green chair, and everybody sees that it's a purple chair, but I've shown that it's a green chair, and I don't come and say, no, it's a purple chair, it's a purple chair, right? Then, they end up, the judge has to go with what, they had an expert, he said it was a green chair, I guess it's a green chair, right? So,
I mean, he makes an interesting point there. You go based on sworn testimony. Sworn, meaning that you're swearing under oath that you're not going to lie. So a lot of times individuals think that these people that are on these stands are lying. Who's to know the difference, right? How are you going to know if they're lying or telling the truth? They took an oath. The only way that works, if you're so untrusting in other people, that means that you're untrustworthy. That means that people shouldn't believe you. They shouldn't give you the benefit of the doubt. They should think that you're lying just like you believe other people are lying. If you always believe that somebody's going to steal from you, that's because chances are you probably stolen from somebody and gotten caught. It works that way. It does, whether you believe that or not. So all the things that you accuse other people of being, there's something being triggered inside of you that you somewhere or somehow have an attachment to that. Otherwise, you wouldn't talk about it so much.
There was a lot of missed opportunities, I think the family felt like throughout this case, not just the change of venue motions, but any expert witnesses that have been presented in this case, the cross-examination the family feels has been.
I'm not used to this. I'm not used to those asterisks. Can't have arbitrarily made a judge without a motion requested, can they? What's COV? I don't know what COV is. Change of venue. Okay. Change of venue can't arbitrarily made by a judge without a motion requested. I was thinking they could have gotten together. Yeah, I figured this out. I'm a little slow when it comes to abbreviations. But I believe, and I'm going to check on this because I could be wrong. I believe that they could have gotten together and said, hey, we need to change this venue based on the individual's right, of having a fair trial. And we have rooms that aren't soundproof. We have this, we have that. We have all these problems. I believe they should have addressed that. But, I could be wrong. Just throwing that out there. I'm not the all-knowing. I'm not too proud to say that I don't know stuff,
Pretty slim to none. So.
And just my last question, Christy, I mean, you're such a strong family, and there's been so many twists and turns like that I don't think anyone really expected along the way. I mean, how do you guys manage to hold it together so well?
Oh boy, it's not easy, but I've got him and the rest of the kids and our moms, and we all hash it out together. We all cry together, and just and we've got Shannon to get on the phone, big group calls and figure it out, and we always try to find the silver lining, and like, this isn't the end, this isn't the end of the road. This is not over. This isn't a, because I take it to heart, like, that's a win for them, and it's like tick for tack. But, other people in the family have different mentality than that. And, they say, Mom, you gotta look at the bigger picture. You can't, it's not tick for tack. It's not tick for tack. And sometimes I'm kind of simple-minded like that, but I got to talk to the kids, and they grounded me and bring me back down, and Steve does, and Shannon does. And I just got to keep talking to them and listening to them and have them help me out.
A reminder that there was DNA evidence found on the sleeve underneath the leg. That good luck with that. Let's bring it on. Don't be scared of this. I mean, it's the pinnacle of evidence. Nothing is stronger than DNA. It's 100% science-based. And, we've got, 5 billion, reasons to think that we have the right guy. So let's go. Let's stop delaying. Stop playing games. Get the right person. And let's get this going.
See right there what he just said. I mean, I don't know. He just drops things like that, whether it's really true or not. That to be seen, you know. And if it is true, that just changes the whole ballgame.
But other people in the family have different mentality than that. And they say, Mom, you gotta look at the bigger picture. You can't, it's not tick for tack. It's not tick for tack. And sometimes I'm kind of simple-minded like that, but I got to talk to the kids, and they grounded me and bring me back down, and Steve does, and Shannon does. And I just got to keep talking to them and listening to them and have them help me out.
A reminder that there was DNA evidence found on the sleeve underneath the leg. That good luck with that. Let's bring it on. Don't be scared of this. I mean, it's the pinnacle of evidence. Nothing is stronger than DNA. It's 100% science-based. And, we've got, 5 billion, reasons to think that we have the right guy. So let's go. Let's stop delaying. Stop playing games. Get the right person. And let's get this going.
So you can imagine the frustration.
So that little statement right there speaks volumes to me, but is it true? Is it not true? I'm not going to get on here and say one way or the other, because he said it. I didn't say it. And, I don't know what he meant under the leg, but just to go after the parents based on what they say. I mean, I try to put myself in their position if I had a daughter that was murdered, or even two, whether I'd be just as fierce, I just don't know. And, there's a lot of you that have your theories based on your hypothesis that is, leads up to your theory. But has that theory been tested scientifically? Have you got the results from that scientific testing? Because if you don't, then how do you dispute somebody else who has investigators, they have a lawyer, they have all these things at their disposal? I'm sure they've been shown stuff that none of us have seen. But we don't want to take them for face value because they are part of the family and they come in a direction that is oppositional to your thought process. And sometimes people are just going to challenge somebody just for the fact of that they're being challenged by somebody else. And, I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not going to be that guy, because this trial is going to come and go. This gentleman is going to be innocent or guilty. The Delphi guy is going to be innocent or guilty. Gilgo Beach guy is going to be innocent or guilty. Murdaugh guy is either going to get a new trial and they're going to find him guilty or innocent. The Stephen, I said it earlier, Stephen, I don't remember his last name, but the Maddie, he killed his 13-year-old stepdaughter, or his girlfriend's stepdaughter, Stotch or something like that. He's either going to be guilty or innocent. For me to sit here and act like I'm emotionally involved when I'm able to see it from a different perspective because I work in this stuff all day, that'd be detrimental to having any kind of objectiveness in doing my job. Because once I start being non-objective, that's when I need to hang it up. And I heard that today, I had a mom and a 16-year-old kid going back and forth, blaming each other for the problem. And they were basically saying the same thing, but they were trying to convince me that one was worse than the other, based on their perception of what their reality was. And that's what happens all the time. I don't like arguing with people about their reality, because the reality is their reality. I've gotten hateful emails behind it. I've gotten all kinds of stuff since I started the channel, and I'm not going there based just to do true crime, just to give my interpretation of facts and, what I view as facts and how I interpret the law and this and that. I'm not going to do it. Not going to do it. But I hope that you enjoyed this, guys. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, how I broke down the amendments, how I broke down, the PCA, the indictment, the grand jury, because many people have questions about that to this day, because it's never explained very thoroughly. It's always talked about, but never really explained thoroughly where you can understand it. And I don't know about you, but I like things to be explained to me where I can understand it. Not just because you understand it. It means that I understand it because you're able to talk through it or at me, because that frustrates me. Or when you ask a question in a chat, they think you're challenging them, so they get upset and they block you or they time you out. You know what I mean? So I'm glad that you guys can, agree to disagree in this chat. I hope that some of you that are local, that wherever the trial is, you get to go and watch for yourself exactly what evidence they do have and what they don't have. Because I do agree with some creators, though. I do agree that we've been given privilege to this, and possibly the next judge, we're not going to know anything until the trial. We're not going to be able to see things on Zoom. And, because there's a positive and negative to bias and all the stuff that people talk about. You can't have it both ways. If you want a fair trial, you got to accept that you might not be able to see everything in the trial, the hearings leading up to the trial. So I just hope that we're still able to see partially some of the stuff that's going on. And hopefully the gag order will be taken off the table. That would be nice. I hope that y'all have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for being here. My name is 12 Gauge. I am your host, 12 Gauge Investigative. If you enjoyed what I present, please come back. Let people know that I exist. And till next time, Maestro, cue that music.